Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 996. I had the black pieces. Oh, first of all, let me say I hope you forgive me for uploading a game with so many blunders, but I think there's really a lot of interesting things to learn about this tactical opening line, so I hope you will indulge me in this one. Anyway, my opponent here started off with e4. I played e6, the French defense. He went d4, I went d5, and he played e5. As a French player, I'm always happy to see my opponent select the advanced variation because it's really easy to play the opening because there's a single thematic idea here that you can use to remember the moves, and that is you just go after the center. So c5, he shores it up with c3. Actually, I was thinking, I've sometimes seen people play knight f3 here, but looks like he was playing it in the most standard way. I may have been confused about that during the game, but he's playing everything in the correct way so far. So I bring my knight out, keep the pressure on. He brings his knight out to defend, and I bring my queen out. So I've got all my pieces lined up here. And this move bishop d3 is an interesting move. So this sets up a little trap. If you take right away and then keep taking, is a new variation, yeah. And then keep taking. And then he has bishop b5 check, and you lose your queen. So that is why you have to be a little bit careful with this line. You don't grab right away, but you play bishop d7. Now, going back to the game, the normal move order is actually to take on d4 first and then play bishop d7. So the way I played it was not entirely accurate. I went bishop d7, and then here he could have taken. And I'm not worried about this usually, so that's why I didn't think it was a big deal. But actually, this is a better position for white than some of these other lines. So it's actually better for black to take first. Let's show how the line normally goes then. You take first, white takes, and then you play bishop d7. And now you're just threatening to grab that pawn. And if white castles here, lets you have the pawn. That's the Milner-Barry gambit. But white also has the option at this point of retreating the bishop. So that's white's choice. So it's an interesting gambit, but probably not entirely. You don't quite have enough compensation as white, so I'd rather have black in those gambit lines. But it is an interesting gambit, and it's played fairly often. So let's go back to the game. So the way I played it, where I played bishop d7 first, I'm forcing white to choose right away whether he wants to play the gambit, because if he doesn't take the pawn, he just castles, then he's transposed into the gambit line, whether he realized it or not, because he won't have time to retreat his bishop to c2 or e2. So you can think of it as kind of a trick play, but if white doesn't want to play the gambit, white can actually take the pawn here and get a good position. So that's why my move order was inaccurate. And what white is doing is fine here. So he just castled, and I took. But now he's committed to playing the gambit, because when he takes back, I can just grab this pawn now. So here there's a couple of lines. The main line is knight takes d4, but also knight bd2 seems to be kind of a standard way to play. He played knight c3, which is not usual in this position, but if we look at this knight takes d4 line, knight takes d4, queen takes d4, then knight to c3 is a normal move. So let's see what's wrong with playing knight c3 first. So he played knight c3. We're not entirely out of the opening book because we transpose back into it. So I could and should take the knight on f3, and I thought about this. So that's why the immediate knight c3 is not so good, because it gives me that option of taking his knight on f3, and this is okay for black. Basically, I'm just a pawn up at this point. And his queen over here, I was a little worried that his queen would be coming out, and I have a completely undeveloped king side, but it turns out this is okay for me. So anyway, when I avoided taking there and played a developing move, I chose the wrong move. So the best developing move here would have been bishop to c5. And we'll see why in a bit. The knight coming out to e7 blocks in that bishop for a move or two, and it creates some problems. Anyway, but I played knight e7, And let's see, are we out of the book at this point? Not quite. Yeah, we keep transposing back and forth into the book. So he takes now. I take back. And then he plays rook b1. He could have played knight b5 here, an interesting idea. And yeah, this is good for this is good for white. If he plays knight b5 here, I'm actually forced to take the pawn. I can't bring my queen back to b6 like I did in the game because he's got dual threats of knight coming to d6 as well as knight coming to c7. And this is why my knight on e7 is a problem, right? It's blocking the bishop's view of the d6 square. So I have to take the pawn. And then he plays rook to e1, chasing my queen. And now I need to keep the c7 square guarded, so I have to drop my queen back to b8. So this is a line that is playable. It's actually playable for both sides. It seems like queen f3 is the continuation. White has given up 2 pawns, but as you can see, he's got a tremendous attack. I mean, my queen has been driven back to this awkward square so that I don't lose a rook here. And is it really worth 2 pawns to have to play a position like this? It's hard to say. But the chess engine rates this as about even. So that means white has plenty of compensation for the pawns. And if you're an attacking player, you might have fun playing a position like that. So let's go back to the game. He didn't play knight b5 right away, but he played rook e1 first. So it's kind of like he's remembering the ideas, but kind of getting them in the wrong order. But this gives me a chance to play queen back to b6, and now he let's see, what did he play here? He played queen f3 here. He could actually play bishop e3 here, and you might think this is bad, but keep in mind I haven't moved this knight yet, and so this fork actually backfires on me because he can take that, sacrificing a piece but getting in this knight b5 move. And now I can't take here, so I have to drop back, and then he's got his knight coming in here to check my king, and this is all bad news for me. I've only 1 pawn and he's got a fierce attack, so that is actually good for white. So tricky lines here. What that means is that after queen b6, and if he were to have played bishop e3 here, like the chess engine is recommending, my best move is not to go for the fork, but just to retreat my queen again, and it's a playable position for both sides. So we let's see, yeah, back to the book, back to the opening book here. So I played. Let's see, he played queen f3. He didn't test me with bishop e3. But what I meant to say is that it's so far we've been kind of wandering in and out of the book and getting into and out of some tactical lines or getting close to them. But the game seems to be even up to this point. And then queen f3 was actually a mistake because now I play knight g6. And the various tricks that he has with knight b5 are not as effective. And he's basically just a pawn down. So are we out of the book at this point? Yeah, we're out of the book at the point when I played queen b6. So instead of queen b6, actually, the chess engine liked for me to play a6 here. There was no need to immediately move the queen. And this also leaves me a pawn up. And so white really doesn't have enough compensation there. But anyway, I drop my queen back to get out of trouble and keep an eye on this square. If he brings his knight to b5 now, I can play knight to g6. So, right, he goes here, I go here, and I've got everything covered. But he played, instead of bishop e3, he played queen f3. And at this point, the chess engine thinks that black is winning. I played the natural move knight g6, which is also the correct move. And he played the move bishop to e3. The funny thing is, even if he doesn't play bishop e3, the chess engine still thinks that black is winning. I guess because he's a pawn down and he's about to lose this pawn. He can hold on to it with a move like queen g3, and then I just develop. And seems like I have a better position as well as being up material. So this is also winning for black. And this was not even flagged as a blunder. It's kind of interesting, but it does lose a piece. So this time his trick doesn't work. He takes, I take, he played knight b5 anyway, but now I can come back to b6, which I did, and my bishop is already guarding the d6 square, so I had time to get the knight out of the way. So I'm just better here. I'm just a piece up. Although white's pieces are pretty active in this position, so it's not that simple for me to play. But I really should just win from this point. And let's go forward to where I get into trouble, right here. Okay, so a couple of decisions right here. Two decisions in a row, and the game goes from a complete win for black to a win, or to an even game. I don't think white ever had a winning position, but I should defend with queen c7. It was kind of natural from my point of view to play queen to e7, try and defend over here on the king side, where obviously white is lining up his pieces, and I was going to castle when he takes this pawn, and that would defend the rook. So I saw I was dropping a pawn. What I didn't see was that how his queen and his rook would coordinate on my bishop, which would be pinned after the knight goes. I was saying, oh, my queen is defended here by the knight. My rooks will defend each other. I can chase his queen away. But that was a little superficial. You have to calculate out the exact move. So queen to e7 would have avoided queen to c7 would have avoided all these problems by defending this pawn, simply defending it. And his attack on the king side is not yet amounting to anything, so not yet a problem. Anyway, I went queen to e7, he takes, and I castled, which is what I planned to do in advance, but let's back up. That's actually what lands me in trouble. I need to defend this bishop now. This is my last chance to defend that bishop before I lose it. So I castled, and now he plays bishop takes g6, which is a neat move. It does two things at once. It removes the knight that was defending the queen, so it creates a pin on the bishop, and at the same time it opens up this line for the rook. So that's why I missed this. Well, I don't know if that's why I missed it, but I missed it. It was doing two things, and I didn't have time to deal with both of them. I have to. Oh yeah, it does three things because it also takes a piece. So I have to get my piece back. I have to unpin, and I have to get my bishop out of trouble, and I can't do all of them. So he gets a piece back here, and now this is an even position. So he takes the bishop, and I step out of the way. So let's just go forward here. It's played reasonably well, and we'll go to the point where he loses a pawn here. It's right here. Yeah, he didn't need to play queen c3. He could have played, I mean, my queen is threatening a lot of things. It's threatening to come to the back rank. He's threatening to come to take this pawn. It's threatening to take this pawn. But the move queen c2 solves everything. It guards the back rank, guards this pawn, and it guards that pawn. So that would have kept the game even. When he played queen c3, he's just giving up a pawn. So I checked and took the pawn. I could have just taken it directly. The chess engine doesn't have a particular preference. Maybe it's slightly like this move. It does drive the rook back, and I grab the pawn. So now I'm a pawn up, and it's a pretty decent position. I think going for a rook and pawn endgame here, I would have good winning chances because the pawns are split. They're not all on one side, and there's a lot of them. So that helps when you have a majority. If you're down to a few pawns, there's a lot of ways to draw the game, these rook and pawn endgames, or if the pawns are all on one side, a 4 against 3 majority is not enough to win if all the pawns are on one side usually. But I have a pawn on the other side. So this should be a win for me. Yeah, let's see. He made a mistake here with rook e3. Queen f3 needed to be played, and then the game would continue. So after rook e3, he's activating his pieces, and but he's left his back rank undefended for the moment. And actually, I played queen d5 to set up the mate that you saw, but the chess engine says it's already winning to do the check first. I saw that he could move his king out of the way, and then I wasn't sure what the follow-up was. I was looking at the ways that I could check the king here, here, and here. But there's another way to check the king, which is to bring the queen in here. And this actually sets up a winning attack. King goes here, play g5. King is starting to run short of squares. The queen drops back to chase my queen away. And I bring my queen out to d1 with a check. He can't block with the rook because I will just check here and drive the king away and pick up a piece. So he has to move the king. And then I play f5. And, well, it's just a question of having all my pieces in on the attack and the pawns joining in. And there's just no way to defend against this attack, apparently. So in addition to the king being short on squares, I'm also threatening things like that fork. And, of course, I'm threatening to take here. So things are just falling apart for black. But, well, it's not an instant win after rook c1 check. And I had also missed that idea of bringing the queen in with f1. If I'd seen that, maybe I would have gone for it. But I didn't see that, so I just played queen d5, preparing to play rook c1 check. And he overlooked it, I guess. He just played there. And then after the check, he resigned. Maybe he was thinking the queen defended that square, but it's blocked by the rook. So his last chance here was to play queen f3. And then the chess engine suggests just going for the rook and pawn endgame. And as I was saying, this looks like a g5 is a way to continue here, according to the engine. It looks like this should be a winning rook and pawn endgame for for black, but of course anything can go wrong. So it may have taken a while for me to grind this out. So I was happy that he made this mistake, put his queen on f4 instead of f3. And allowed the check, and then he resigned. Anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.